are 7 kinds of content that take someone from being a random stranger on the internet to actually wanting to pay you to solve their problem. And if you're missing any of these 7 things, you risk falling into the content hamster wheel trap, constantly creating and publishing, and being lucky if you get a few likes and maybe the occasional comment. Meanwhile, what I'm going to teach you in this video is what makes it possible for me to spend 5 minutes throwing together a post for a client that immediately has someone signing up for their $1,500 program. Because what makes content so effective is not how beautiful it is to look at or even how regularly you're publishing. It's whether that content is actually supporting your client's decision-making process so they get to the point where they feel safe, willing, and ready to work with you, to pay you. And as someone who has spent the last 11 years supporting small business owners and online solopreneurs, I know how difficult it is to find the time and energy to market yourself when you are so busy looking after your clients. So I wanted to create this video to help you use your energy wisely and no longer waste it on content marketing that isn't actually growing your business. Sound good? Let's dive in. In the 11 years I've been working with clients, first as a copywriter and then as a business coach, I have been able to spot some pretty major common threads. And I'd have to say that one of the biggest is that most of them feel completely overwhelmed and confused when it comes to marketing. We all know it's important. We all feel this pressure to be on social media, and yet so few people actually know how to do it effectively, which leads to spending thousands each year on ads that don't work, hours every single week tinkering with Canva graphics on posts that end up getting 5 likes, and one of the worst horror stories I heard, which was someone spending $100,000 on a full-time marketing person's salary only to have them get 0 leads for their business the entire year. It kills me. So before we dive into the specific strategy I want to teach you today, I think it's really important that we all get on the same page around what the purpose of content actually is. Number 1, it is a really powerful way to get discovered by potential clients. Number 2, it is an amazing way for us to build connection and nurture those relationships with people who are truly in resonance with us. And number 3, it is one of the most effective ways for us to establish authority in our space and truly stand out from the competition. But the most important aspect of content is what it does to help us educate our audience and ready them so that they can make a really informed decision about whether or not to work with us. Because for them to be ready, they need to understand the problem that they have, believe that that problem can actually be solved, believe that your way of solving the problem is the best way for them to solve it, and believe that you are the best person to actually be delivering this solution. But let's zoom out for a second. I want you to imagine that this is you, and this is your ideal client. And between you, the big gap. And in order for them to get to this place where they're actually paying you and working with you, we are going to need to build a bridge. And that is where this framework comes in. So I hope you have your notepad ready because we're going to move fast and there will be homework. Now, our brains are pretty amazing. You might have heard of the reticular activating system, which is like a network of neurons in your brain that act as gatekeepers. So basically, they decide what information we consciously take in and what is sort of blurred out so that we don't pay attention. And the reason this exists is because if we took in absolutely everything in our news feeds and everything in the world around us, we would be so much more overwhelmed than we already are. This is really important for us to know as content creators because we all have these things running. And when people scroll past your content, it's because their mind has already decided it is not relevant. Like it's processing it that quickly. So for your potential ideal fit clients to stop their scroll and pay attention, it is going to take you meeting them where they're at, basically joining the conversation that's already happening in their heads. What I mean by that is they already have a whole bunch of thoughts and stories going on about the problem at hand that you could potentially be helping solve. They have their own vocabulary, their way of describing what their challenges are, what their desires are, what they think is going to solve this problem. And when you can actually meet them by speaking in their language and speaking in a way that is relevant and timely based on what is going on for them today, there is a really good chance that they're going to stop their scroll and go, oh, okay, this shows me that someone actually understands me. So the first piece of your content bridge is known as catalyst content. Catalyst content is about initiating the relationship and catalyzing them to do something different, which is pause and pay attention. I want you to see this as the entrance to your bridge. Basically, if you do not have this in place, they are not going to begin the journey to actually working with you. So, this is some of the most important content that you're going to create. Some examples for you: content that speaks directly to the struggles that your ideal clients are currently having. But remember, again, in their actual language, how are they describing these struggles? Content that shines a light on the desires they have. What is the future version of their life or their business or whatever it is that you're helping them with? And also content that provides proof of what's possible, because they might think that this is a great place for them to aim when they could actually be aiming for this. And once they see stories from other people like them who have achieved all sorts of amazing things, that could have them go, oh, wow, like I've been aiming too low. So catalyst content gets the conversation started, but it is going to take a lot more to keep the conversation going, because we need to talk about the fact that people are now more cynical than ever. We are all recovering from the era of pop-up businesses a la 2020, where, everyone woke up one day and was like, oh, I'm a course creator, I'm a coach. An era where people got really good at marketing themselves, but hadn't actually yet mastered the thing that they were selling. The other thing that's going on is that we are absolutely bombarded each day with AI slop. So we are on high alert and more conscious than ever about whether or not we're following not just human beings, but people who are the real deal, genuine experts in whatever it is that they're talking about. There was a time where anyone could create a video on like 5 tips on how to fill in the blank, and we would see them as an expert. It was the pre-AI age, and it was just a time where the internet was less noisy and information wasn't quite as available as it is today, at least not in a very convenient way for us to consume it. But these days, people will just go straight to AI and ask for help when they need to learn how to do something. And it can give them answers in a really clear way really fast. Now, whether or not this is a good thing or whether or not the information is accurate is a whole nother story. The point is that our consumption of content behaviors have changed. And that means our content strategy needs to change as well. A lot of people got overexcited about AI and thought, oh yeah, they found this way to hack the system and now pump out a whole bunch of content and like become prolific. I don't know about you, but I'm not paying to work with someone who is pumping out generic content. Like, I want to know that I am working with someone who is a genuine embodied expert, someone who has lived experience, who has depth and understands nuance. This is why I find it quite funny that everyone's freaking out about how impossible it is to stand out in the day and age of AI, because it's actually very easy to stand out from AI. Like, the main key is not to lean on AI to do the thinking for you and to actually find your voice and own your story and share it. But I might need to save some of that for a separate episode. Our second C is credibility, sharing content that demonstrates your expertise. And like I said, this isn't going to happen through simple tips content. We're going to need stories from your lived experience and from client case studies as you gather them. We're going to want to see your unique perspective. I mean, like your hot takes, your polarizing opinions, your unique way of seeing the world because of this cross section of your different elements of training and experience and skills. And we're looking for nuanced, robust frameworks that help us better understand our own challenges and how we're going to overcome them. And sure, you can throw in social proof like testimonials, but even testimonials these days are so easy to fake, and I just don't think it's quite enough for people anymore to read some rave reviews, because we know that people only ever share the best feedback and we're never seeing even like the average feedback. So just know that telling the story of how you actually guided someone through your unique process is going to be infinitely more powerful than just sharing a quick quote from them about how amazing you are. But credibility is only the first half of the humanity puzzle. Once people know you're a genuine expert, they also want to figure out if they actually like you. Because what we can forget is that the process and how it feels can count for just as much, if not more, than the actual outcome. They're not looking for someone who can just do the job. They're looking for someone who is going to make them feel safe and supported and seen and understood throughout that process, no matter how long it takes. And this is where our third part of the bridge comes in: connection. Content is an opportunity for people to trial working with you risk free, for them to get a taste of your personality and humor, how you explain things, to see if you're someone who practices what they preach and embodies their values, and to learn about your bigger picture mission and whether it's something that they really align with. Because believe it or not, people do actually care about why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, Simon Sinek wrote an entire book on it. So, with connection content, we're not talking about like, oh, here's what I ate for breakfast kind of content. The best connection content is actually quite deep. And it's not only about what you say, it's also about how you say it. So, you may actually find that you are creating credibility content, but the way you decide to share it, whether it's you bearing your soul and being quite vulnerable, or you making light of it and making a joke and being quite silly, all of that is playing a part in creating connection. Sure, it could be more obvious where it's like you telling your story or talking about your mission and your why. But it could also be about providing subtle clues to your values, the things that you really care about that are going to be connection points with your audience. For instance, do you have pets? Are you a parent? Do you love gardening? What do you care about and how do you spend your free time? These can be things that your audience goes, oh, that's just like me. Oh, this person is going to get me. We're definitely going to get along. Okay, so we're almost halfway across the bridge. And all of the content types we've been talking about so far have almost been like an audition for the real thing. It's the content that really earns the right to someone's attention. But now we're going to start to get really serious. So, one of the biggest challenges that we can have as experts is known as the curse of knowledge. And this is where, because we've been doing what we do for so long, kind of feels easy to us. And we take a lot for granted and we can make a lot of assumptions about other people thinking, oh, yeah, but of course they already know that. So, we can be assuming that our ideal clients know a lot more about their challenges and the potential solutions than they actually do. I've had clients coming to me who were confused by why what they were sharing wasn't really landing. And when I went and had a look at their profiles, I saw that they were using a lot of jargon. They were talking from this place of being a lot more advanced or like sophisticated in their knowledge and describing things that their potential client wasn't even yet familiar with. Like they may be talking about what life could be like 3 years in the future, but the client is so bogged down in their current challenges that they're not paying attention. Their reticular activating system is filtering all of that out. So our fourth piece of the bridge, cognition, is all about making sure that our clients are actually on the same page as us, that they know what they need to know in order to realize that, yes, we are here to be able to solve the thing that they're struggling with. So some of the jobs that cognition content does is it helps them understand why they're actually having this challenge in the first place. It provides a map for where they're going, because they may not even see beyond next week. Like they don't understand how they're going to get from where they are today to where they're trying to go in 6 or 12 months' time. It reveals the gaps in their knowledge. Like they don't know what they don't know. It helps them understand your unique approach. And it's especially going to help them understand how your approach differs from other solutions, keeping in mind that the way you solve someone's problem is not the only way for them to solve it. Like for instance, when you've got a coach, there could be courses out there, there's templates, there's software, there's done for you solutions. Like coaching is not the only way for someone to solve that problem. So you really educating people on why your way is going to be of the most benefit to them is a huge part of cognition content. And again, the way you approach this content could actually have some overlap with the other C's. For instance, you could use a client case story that you were going to be telling already as part of your credibility content. And in that case story, you actually touch on your framework, the steps that you took to get someone from A to B. You could talk about the biggest mistakes that your clients were making when they came to you and how you helped correct that. You can call out the shortcomings of other solutions, why they maybe aren't long-term solutions, or why they can end up costing you more or not solving the entire problem. You could create visuals that represent your framework and give people a really easy, sticky way of remembering it. The point here is to really ask yourself, what does your client need to know about their challenges, their goals, and the options for achieving them in order for them to be ready to go, yep, I'm confident to hand over my money and work with you. However, knowledge isn't the only block that can stop someone from being ready to pay for help. Think about it. Have you ever heard some amazing success story and gone, oh yeah, well, that's great for them, but I don't have ABC. Or, yeah, that's great, but it wouldn't work for me because I'm not blur. Or maybe you've had the opportunity to invest in some sort of like high ticket solution, but then had this fear of like, yeah, but what if it actually doesn't work? I've tried some other thing before and it was a disaster. It was a total waste of money. Your clients can know on a logical level that your solution has the potential to work, but believing it can work for them and believing it's worth the risk of the investment, that's a different story, which is why our fifth C stands for coach. Your content is going to need to coach people through some of these fears and doubts so that they can actually feel safe and get to this point of believing that whatever it is that you're offering can work for them. In other words, this is content that overcomes what most people refer to as objections. But I don't like calling them objections because seeing it this way can cut us off from empathy, and we can just see them as these like walls that we just need to barge through. Instead of seeing our clients as actual human beings, tapping into empathy and understanding, oh, like they're actually scared. So I need to approach this more from my heart than from some bro marketing manipulative place that almost tricks them into saying yes. Like that is not a healthy place to come at sales from. And it tends to backfire because if people end up realizing they were sort of tricked into signing up for working with you, but they weren't truly feeling safe, they will start to freak out. And they're less likely to have positive results and more likely to resent you later on. So let's focus on starting the relationship from the right place, shall we? Now, how we approach coach content is varied and nuanced. It has a lot to do with what it is you're selling, who it is you're working with, and what those specific blocks are, because there can be straight up fears that are related to people's traumatic experiences in the past. There's just general self-doubt because they've never done this thing before. And there can also be other concerns they have that are more to do with like obstacles that seem to be in their path. So I won't be able to go into all of them, but I will give you a couple of examples. So one of the simplest ways we can approach coach content is by telling stories of people like them. Chances are you've had other people who had the same blocks, fears, doubts, etc. So how did you work through those? Acknowledging in your stories that someone came to you with this particular fear or doubt, and then talking about how you guided them through this process, and then what happened coming out the other side is going to provide evidence for their ego minds that like, oh, okay, this can be done. And then obviously having some supporting, testimonials in the client's words of how they feel now versus how they felt before can also be really powerful. Another approach is to speak to how your offer itself will tackle that particular fear. Let's say that your potential clients have the concern that they won't actually have enough time to do this work or to implement the thing that you're giving them. You can talk about the way your offer handles that head on. Like, for instance, do you have some sort of feature of it that is about time saving? Or, like, for me personally, I'm someone who's very upfront about the fact that however much time you have to spare in the week, we're going to build the strategy around that amount of time that you have so that whatever we're creating is sustainable. I'm not going to tell you you have to come to me with 5 spare hours a week to create content because I just know it's not always practical. Like sometimes I work with people who have jobs that take up 60 to 80 hours a week. I'm not going to ask them to also find another 5 hours to do this work. The big thing here is remembering that you're speaking to human beings. Stop seeing this as some objection and like, oh no, what's the salesy way that I can overcome this? And instead, ask yourself, okay, like if I was in their shoes, what would I need to know? What would I need to hear? And sometimes it's also about us optimizing our offers as well, because a lot of the time, fear and doubt can come from the fact that the offer itself is not solid enough or the messaging for your offer is not solid enough. So just know that content, it shouldn't have to do all the heavy lifting if the offer itself is really well optimized. But again, that's a story for another day or another episode. Now, there's one final thing that can stop people from taking action, and that is the belief that it's just not important for them to do or urgent enough for them to do right now. They're like, oh, that sounds great, but XYZ is my priority right now. Or, oh, I'm definitely going to do that once I've done ABC. And look, some of your coach content may help address some of these things because if you've had people with those objections in the past, you may already be touching on some of these things. But the other way we can speak to this objection is by addressing the true cost of what happens if they don't actually take action right now and they choose to do this in the future instead. For instance, the continued discomfort of having to deal with the problem that exists right now, the delayed positive outcome of not hitting those results. And also, if relevant, and often it is relevant, but opportunity costs, the other things that they won't be able to have happen or for them to experience because they haven't done this particular thing. So the sixth C of your bridge stands for true cost. The genuine true cost, not looking for a false sense of urgency. Like, oh, if you don't sign up in the next 24 hours, then the price is going to triple. Like, you know what I'm talking about. So an example of true cost. So I had a client who was an elevator consultant. He had seen a lot of horror stories from buildings where, because the elevator hadn't been serviced regularly, the elevator would stop working and would need fixing and could take 6+ weeks to get fixed. And it was the only elevator in the building. You can imagine the disruption, the amount of abuse that the landlord was getting. Like it's a problem. So him talking about the fact that elevator servicing needs to be done regularly and proactively is a no-brainer. That's completely in integrity. Or let's say someone who helps with back-end systems. So like maybe their client is saying, oh, I'm not ready for this because I want to wait till I'm about to launch this new offering. And the service provider is like, okay, cool. But I know that if you wait to start to do this right before a launch, we're not going to have time. It's going to be messy. It's going to be more costly. You're so much better setting these up from the very beginning so that you can go into the launch being completely calm and also with like white space so that you can deal with all of the unexpected stuff that comes up during a launch. So for you, I want you to ask, what are the benefits of people actually taking action with you now? And what might it cost them if they were to delay this? So where catalyst content got them on the bridge, it's now time to talk about what gets them off the bridge, like taking that final step and going, yep, let's do this thing. And this final piece of the bridge is a little bit unique because your content in this category will only sometimes be public facing. Yes, you may have some content where there's like a call to action for them to download a freebie, to book a call with you, to sign up for an entry level offer. But often the actual conversion, someone committing to working with you and then paying you, that conversation might happen via DM, or it might happen via email or on a discovery call. So rather than you seeing this final C convert as a category of content, I'd rather you see it as a mechanism that can be added to your content or that can take place beyond content. Also, this is where I want to introduce you to the idea that while all these C's form a bridge that represents the client or customer journey, every single piece of content has the opportunity to be a mini bridge. So where the opening line, it could be the subject line, it could be the hook of your post, the front page of your carousel, that is the catalyst. That is always going to be the thing that meets someone in the conversation in their head. The middle part of the content is going to contain any sort of combination of that, the credibility, the connection, the cognition, the coach, etc. And then the point of each piece of content is to create a mini conversion. So where this person goes from feeling, thinking, or doing one thing to feeling, thinking, or doing another thing. Sometimes that's really subtle. It's about shifting them from one frame of mind to another frame of mind. Sometimes it might get them like literally contemplating something or taking a different action in their everyday life. And sometimes it's going to be them literally taking an action at the end of consuming that content. It might be to leave a comment. It might be to interact with another piece of content of yours. It might be to sign up to the thing, to book a call, etc. So you've got this mini bridge that takes people on a journey every single time they interact with your content. Speaking of mini bridge, we are almost at the end of this particular mini bridge journey I've taken you on. And I wanted to make sure that I leave you with something really tangible, some action that you can take to start implementing what we've talked about today. If you're feeling a little bit like, oh my God, this is great, I love it, but also, holy crap, how am I going to start to implement? Like, this is where these 3 suggested homework items come in, okay? So the first one is, I want you to take a look at the content you've created in the last month, 3 months. If you don't create much content, that's fine. And I want you to try and tie it to the various C's and have a look at how many from each category have you been touching on. Where are you doing really well and where was the biggest gap or gaps? Number two, I want you to do some actual brainstorming on these categories and where these gaps exist for your client. So thinking about what are their fears and their doubts, things that they don't know what they don't know. What is the conversation that's going on in their head? Brainstorm so that you have at least 3 ideas for each one of these C's that I talked about today, which you can then feed into your content strategy for the next month ahead. And finally, slightly more advanced exercise for you. If you've recently had some potential clients who actually chose not to work with you in the end, I want you to have a think about what C's could have been responsible for this. Did they mention what particular objections they have? Did you find out why they went with a different solution? This is such powerful data to have because every time we get a no, if we can actually find out what was the why behind the no, it gives us the opportunity to create more content that supports that particular gap and is less likely for it to be a no in the future. Whatever you do, please go easy on yourself because content and messaging, which are overlapping topics, are massive, massive subjects. And I am able to talk about these things the way I do because I've been doing this for more than 11 years. And it takes time to develop the skills and the knowledge, and then also the real time practice to really get it in your bones. But the fact is, even if you can take one thing from this particular episode and apply it, you're already moving in the right direction. Okay. So just it's all good. But also know that content is rarely the only issue if you're struggling to land clients consistently. And falling into the trap of freelance mode is one of the biggest things that I see sabotaging small business owners' success. So if you think that that might be you, I highly suggest you watch that video next. Thank you for tuning in, and I will chat to you on the next one. Bye for now.